My wife and I are actually getting along a lot better than we were.
That's great.
Despite the fact that I joined a religion that she is disdainful of.
To somebody who knows nothing about Sikhism, how would you describe it?
I would just, let them know that it's just a religion of all-inclusiveness. We consider all people to be children of God, basically, as it were. We're all, just in this world together, and we need to, it's, the idea that if we're children of God and God wants his children to get along, then we do our best with our, what rules we do follow to, try and make it so that we're able to treat everyone the same as one.
Yeah. So, what would you say that you could have, for example, a Christian Sikh or a Muslim Sikh, or would you say that they're in conflict?
Well, just because they're different religions, it's, Sikhi is not just a philosophy. Like, you could, I want to say that Buddhism is like your philosophy, and you've got a lot of Christian Buddhists, and you may even have Muslim Buddhists. I don't know, but as far as like, Sikh goes, it's not just a philosophy. So it is a completely separate and different religion with some different, some major differences. Probably one of your major differences, and I think, I'm not as familiar with Muslim as I am with Christianity, and that would be that, I do know in Christianity, for the most part, a lot of Christians profess that their prophet is also God. And, from the idea that, we're all children of God, sure, but the fact that they tend to pray to that prophet rather than to God, is probably your major difference. And so while we refer to Guru Nanak and Guru Gobind Singh a lot, and we invoke their names a lot, when we're praying, we are not praying to them, we're praying to the Almighty Creator of everything.
Yeah. So, what's your personal history with Sikhism?
My personal history with Sikhism is mainly that I just was having certain issues in my life, and there were things about Sikh that that were kind of from my past, that things that I learned, things like meditation, humility. These are little things that are a part of the virtues of Sikhism that we're looking to, put out there. And so, preparing yourself to be that good service person to the rest of the world, you have to take care of yourself, and we do that with meditation, yoga, exercise, and things like that. But my experience was that I didn't have a religion or anything for a good 20 years of my life, and I was really needing. I was having problems with my wife, and I was having problems with my life. And while I was still, doing things well, I just there was things that I wished I could do better.
Yeah.
And when I started researching Sikhism, I found a lot of those things were in place within it And I didn't have to go to a lot of different places to pull it all together. It was already here.
Yeah.
So, and that's basically what brought me to this.
Were you ever religious? You mentioned there was 20 years gap. Were you religious before that?
Yes, and that's the thing, is that why Sikh religion for me was a thing that I could go to. It was something that I could accept in my mind and everything, because I had been quite religious when I was younger. I did go through a bunch of religions when I was younger. Christianity being one of them. I was Roman Catholic for about 4 years, and I was an altar boy, and I was, really into the ritual of it, which translated very easily to the ritualism in Sikh. I was, after I was Roman Catholic and kind of got away from that because of so much just utter hypocrisy from the congregation, as it were, that I just, I didn't really want to align myself with that. And so at some point in time I became pagan. And in the pagan religion, in the Wiccan religion, there is a ton of ritualism as well.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of moved through a lot of religions that involved quite a bit of ritualism.
Yeah.
And that, made this be something that was, good for me. I'm not saying it's good for the actual ritualism within Sikh is good for everyone, and there are lots of levels of Sikhs that I've met since I became one. So from ones that, cut their hair and their beards, and they don't really, they drink and they don't, observe certain things, and then all the way up to people who are so much more than I am, and so.
Could you explain the symbolism behind you?
The symbolism behind me. Well, the one on the left and right there, those are called the khanda, and I have one on my neck too. And it's the sword. It's 3 swords, one straight up and down in the middle that's a double-edged sword, and it is divine. It describes divine, or represents divine destruction. The circle around it represents divine creation. In Sikhi, we believe that God is the creator and destroyer. There's no devil. There's nothing like that. God is everything. There's nothing that there would be nothing without God.
Yeah.
And so you can't separate and say, oh, there's this other powerful being over here who is destruction, the devil, and then there's this God over here who's, all good, and that's, it's, I understand the people that need to think of things like that in order for them to wrap their minds around it.
Yeah.
And that's perfectly fine for them.
Yeah.
It's something that was never good for me. I never believed in that. Even when I was a little kid, I always believed that, if God is the most powerful and created everything, then even this thing y'all call the devil is a creation of God.
Yeah.
So, and that makes it part of God. So I just, always going back to God. So divine creation, divine destruction. Then the 2 swords underneath it represent Miri and Piri. They are the conscious and subconscious.
Okay.
So it's conscious spirituality and subconscious spirituality, and so that's the khanda, and its basic meaning is just the everything. It kind of encompasses everything. Then the one in the center, that's actually the name of God. It is Ik Ankar, and it is it means one creative force.
Okay.
So Ik is one, Ankar is creative force or creative being, and that's, it's the beginning of our Mool mantra, which is the, basically the basic description of God. The name of God is Ik Onkar Satanam Kartaput Niravo Niraver Akal Marat Ajani Saibang Guru Prasad. And that is, as it were, the whole of God's name.
Mm-hmm. So what about the swords and the shields?
That is, basically they just represent divine power.
Okay.
Sikhs, where they come from, originally in the Punjab region of India and the western portion of, the eastern portion of Pakistan, they kind of were always sandwiched between both Muslims and Hindus, and basically had to protect themselves from forced conversion on both sides.
Okay. I've never heard about that from Hinduism, but I have from Islam.
Well, Hinduism's, their forced conversion is a little bit different than in Muslim, the forced conversion is convert or die. We cut your head off, something like that. And, I don't think all Muslims are like that. I think that there are some that have an ego that gets in their way, and then they want to, force this on other people.
Yeah.
With the Hindu, it tends to be a little bit more, I think it's more like it is here in America, where they make laws against your practices, Like it may be against the law for a non-Hindu to wear a turban. I don't think that it is, but that's an example of one of the things that they might come up with. Right now, there's a big thing where the farmers are on revolt, and most of your farmers in India are Sikhs, and they're basically threatening to remove the minimum wage, with the promise that they're going to pay more.
Yeah.
But we all know what happens after a few years. You don't get more. So, anyways, that's kind of my opinion, at least.
So, what are some do's and don'ts for a Sikh?
Do's. The three pillars of Sikhi is chant the name. So we just praise God. Chant the name, work hard, have a profession or a job or something, and make money honestly, basically an honest living, and then finally share some of that honest living that you make with those who are less fortunate. So those are the main do's for Sikhs.
Okay.
And really, the don'ts are, for better word, don't be a dick. Really, it's don't be mean. Don't slander people. Forgive people's shortcomings. Accept that the divinity within everything. And so don't harm others, don't steal, don't be a liar or a cheater, Probably many religions have a lot of the same virtues. Yeah. Even though their idea is that those virtues are only for them, and only the people that are like them. And that's kind of where I've always had this disagreement, is that, if you feel that, people are deserving of a certain level of being, then that should be true for all people and not just people in your religion or of your color or of your ethnicity, background group, from your tribe.
Yeah.
So.
can you be a Sikh and not attend the rituals and the prayers and such?
So, me being a really new Sikh, I can answer this question kind of in the fact that I did Sikh stuff for almost a year before I ever came to a Gurdwara. And so, I mean, I learned to tie the turban before I ever had a turban, really. So, I mean, Sikh is one of those things where, you're not converted, so, you have to come to it.
Yeah.
And so how you go about coming to it is going to be on you. And if that's, you do it by yourself for a while at least, maybe you'll always do it by yourself. I didn't find any Sikhs in Fayetteville when I first started being a Sikh, and I didn't come across, until I started searching for a Gurdwara, I didn't even know that there was one near me.
Yeah.
And I still, I drive 30 minutes to come here, and which is not a big deal. I love the drive is fine too.
Yeah.
But I did it by myself at first. I just used Google, and I would, look up what to do and how to do it, and and I did a lot of stuff. I found a lot of stuff in English, and was able to read it and understand what I was doing, because I didn't want to, take part in something that I had no idea what I was saying or doing, even in someone else's language. But I always enjoyed the chanting and everything. I mean, I grew up listening to opera, and most of the operas I listened to were in a language I didn't understand, Italian or German or, but I still really enjoyed the music and the singing and everything about it. So that's, I guess my answer would be yes, you can do it by yourself, but I had mentioned before that when you do it by yourself, you have to bring 100% of the energy, and so it can make it a little bit easier when you get together with a group of people who have similar thinking, and then we all work together to do the same stuff. Then you don't have to bring 100% of the energy, because each person brings some of the energy, and then that together brings about the whole.
Yeah. How did you discover this? I know a lot of people don't even know this is a thing, and a lot of people confuse it with Islam too, I've noticed. Yes, a lot of people do. In fact, I've been called quite a few different things since I became a Sikh. The most number one thing is people say, "Oh, you look like a terrorist." And I'm like, "Well, that's that's really nice of you. Appreciate that." My answer is often, "What? I look like Timothy McVeigh?" Which, no, they do. But that's just a Western misconception. And part of one of the reasons why I actually adopted wearing the turban was a part of my wanting to, as an American person, show other Americans that just because someone wears a turban doesn't mean this stereotype that we have decided upon. And that's one of those things that needs to be gotten rid of. It's along with a lot of our bigotries that we hold. And I'm not saying that I'm the best, but I try. I try to recognize when that happens and when I'm wrong, and admit to myself at least, and to others if I have to, that I'm wrong and that I needed to, not think in that way. Yeah. I think it really helps if you can admit that to others, because even if you admit it to yourself, that's not going to be as much accountability as if you tell someone else.
Right. it's part of the whole coming to the Gurdwara is, you know, being around people that you can they can kind of hold you accountable. You know, you put yourself in that position to be held accountable. And, you know, being held accountable is not a bad thing. It's pretty important, in fact.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I work in a business where if I don't hold my employees accountable for what they do, then the business goes downhill.
Yeah,
So.
absolutely. So what introduced you to Sikhism?
Oh, right. What introduced me to Sikh? Well, mainly I just, I had an issue with cutting my hair, basically. Not my hair so much as my beard. And I work in food service, and so it's kind of an issue.
Yeah.
Although I did discover that there are workarounds. You can get beard nets that cover this really perfectly, so it's not really an issue, and there's accommodations. So, but I did have issue initially with my beard and work, and my coming to Sikhi was not as much that I didn't want to cut my beard as much as I couldn't cut my beard. And I just had this thing in my heart that wouldn't let me. And I didn't know what that was. And so I questioned, you know, in fact, I went straight to Google and questioned why I couldn't cut my beard. First thing that popped up was Sikhs don't cut their beard, and I went, oh, interesting. That started me down the role of researching Sikh and everything about them. And the more I read, the more points that I came across would tick off. Wow, I believe that. Wow, I've believed that all my life. Wow, we did that when I was a kid, kind of thing, you know. And so it really opened me up, and the fact that I had not been religious and wasn't really looking for a religion when I discovered this.
Yeah.
It really touched me and pulled me in.
Yeah.
And so all of it again has been, you know, completely voluntary, and I've 100% have, you know, delved into this through my own learning, my own, you know, I actually really started coming to the Gurdwara in order to get more personalized learning and to seek out a guru to help teach me to be more this way, and to hang out with people who are this way.
Yeah. And
also to get some, this was the easiest way for me to get some kind of full immersion into, you know, the language of the religion. And so, you know, I aspire at some point in time to be able to converse with my Punjabi friends in Punjabi, and maybe one day even read the Gurmukh script. But I'm a far way off on those.
Yeah. Yeah, the language takes a lot.
I wasn't even good at learning Spanish, and it's...
So you bounced around between a few different religions. Do you think this is going to be your final resting place?
Most likely. Most likely. Well, I mean, I'm 50 years old, so... and I spent 20 years without a religion.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if I were to leave this one, which I don't think you know, I don't foresee that as being a thing, you know, it would, in many years haven't found anything else.
Yeah.
You know, and so at worst it would be my own idea of Sikhi.
Yeah.
Would be what I would end up in if you know, I wasn't 100% into this, which I am pretty 100%.
Yeah, I've noticed. So, could you explain the reason behind the, you know, natural growing your hair and your facial hair and covering your head?
Well, from my learning, from my research that I've done before I became, fully became Sikh and started, practicing this. If you think about it, a lot of religions are born out of political strife.
Yeah.
And often it's, it's either the state religion has become corrupt or the previous religion has become corrupt.
Yeah.
And the new religion that comes about is basically trying to, get back to to it being about God and less about control.
Yeah.
Like in the Muslim religion, they pray in a certain direction. They pray towards Mecca because that's supposed to be where God is. And Guru Nanak, he disagreed that God was only in Mecca. If God created everything, and he made the statement to one of the Qazis that was mad at him for sitting with his feet pointing to Mecca instead of his head, he said to the Qazi, he says, show me a direction that God isn't. You can't. If God creates everything and God is everywhere, then there is no direction that God isn't. And so it is illogical that you would have to only face a certain direction to pray to God.
Yeah.
Let's see, in both the Muslim and the Hindus, only certain people were allowed to wear turbans. And turbans were representative of crowns. In fact, many countries have had, their king has been crowned via turban. And so that's, one of those things where it's, it exalts you.
Yeah.
And so for Sikhs, it's saying that no one is higher than anyone else. There is no king of men.
Yeah.
As it were. We're all equal in the eyes of God. And so that's basically the reason for the turban. I can't remember whether it was Muslim or Hindu, but either one or both of them, they shaved the head of the child on the first birthday, I think. And Guru Nanak was, and I can't remember if it was specifically girls maybe, or maybe it was specifically boys. The hair is not bad. It was given to us by God.
Yeah.
So that was one of the things that he thought was, it was one of those bad ideas, and I think it was a way of separating people. The Sikhs early on, Nanak, he was against the Hindu caste system. He said, no, there's no caste. Humans are not born in caste. We're all equal.
Yeah.
And so this caste system is rejected. And, a lot has to do with the systems that were in place at the time to separate and marginalize people, both men and women, and so he just, he started saying, no, that's, again, all this is a separation and control and a way to put down on your brother, and so we're not going to do that.
Yeah. What does your family think of you being a Sikh?
Well, my kids really haven't had a problem. The ones that know, at least. I have one kid that I don't know if he knows that I'm a Sikh, but I do know that I have 3 kids that do know I'm a Sikh, and none of them have had a problem with it at all that I know of. My wife is a little bit more reserved. She grew up as a missionary, and watched her father just not do so good for her family as a preacher, and so she has a dim view of religion altogether. Any religion, it doesn't matter what it is. So she has a dim view of it, and and I haven't asked any of my family to become Sikhs at all. They can do whatever they want. This is personally for me.
Yeah.
To be right in my own head and live a good life. And one of the aspects of Sikhi is that the world around us is called Maya, and it's an illusion. It's something to take your mind off of God. That when you leave this place, you can't take anything with you. And at best your experiences, so the idea that when you do go to leave this place, if your focus is on this place, then you're dooming yourself basically on a spiritually energetic level to have to return and repeat all the mistakes and everything that this life has for us. And the idea is that when you do leave this place, you shouldn't be thinking about, oh, what am I leaving behind? Or who have I not done something for? Or what was my favorite ice cream? These shouldn't be the things that are on your mind when you're leaving this place to go to God.
Yeah.
It should be a focus on that journey and becoming one with God. Okay. And that's kind of my opinion, basically, of where we stand as Sikhs. What our focus should be on is, not worrying about what you did or didn't do here in this life, or what you had or didn't have, because again, it's all illusion. This is just I've described it prior to being a Sikh. I described this world as being just a virtual reality game, and our brains, our minds, are really just the equipment that our spirits use to experience the game.
Yeah.
So if you were, to put on a VR helmet and play some game, that's kind of what our spirits are doing with our bodies. Our body is the VR helmet, and the spirit puts it on and plays the little world game, and then when you take it off again and die, you either were so into the game that you got to get back in it, or when you're done with the game, you're ready to be home again. So,
okay, that's interesting. So, if you're ready to move on, what happens?
Well, as far as Sikhs believe, and of course you're not fully knowing that you're ready to move on until you've moved on. Basically, the way Sikhs believe in, as far as heaven goes, as it were, it's not really. We describe it as the true congregation, the congregation of the holy, where we sit around and play music, and sit around with God and listen to music, and all be servants to each other, and kind of like what we're doing right now. But it's more on an energetic level, less on a physical level. The way Sikhs believe in reincarnation, and that if you're still tied to this place, you'll come back and you'll do it all over again. And you may not reincarnate immediately as a human. You've gone through, the belief is that you've gone through many reincarnations to get to the human body, and that the human body is your chance to get back to God.
Yeah.
And if you fail in that, then you've got to be reincarnated, live however many lives. You might have lived eons as a stone before, you became a grasshopper and a butterfly and a bird and as the energy moves through, the different things, and eventually you become human, and then you get to take that energy and reunite with God. Mm-hmm. And so at that point in time, the thought is that your spirit energy is reunited with God in ecstasy and bliss, and you don't come back here again. So the description is that you don't have the messenger of death does not come knocking on your door that last time.
Yeah.
Even though technically you die when you leave here, but it's not the messenger of death whom you greet and put you back in the cycle. You get to skip that. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's just what I was explaining was if you're, I learned, I'm a massage therapist as well. And I learned in anatomy and physiology, and not even just for massage, but all anatomy and physiology for like doctors and, nurses and stuff, that the energy follows thought. Repeated actions cause energy to, that it's your repeated actions. So I learned this even when I was in martial arts. Mm-hmm. You have to do we call them fit-ins, you have to do your practices. You have to keep doing these similar motions over and over and over again to perfect the motion. And that's kind of what we do in Sikhi, is we perform these good actions over and over again, and that energy of the good actions being performed over and over again develops us to be a good action that happens, and that's what gets you to God. God's looking for the good action. Mm-hmm. But it takes that, doing it over and over again to make it work. And I saw this in anatomy and physiology. I saw this in martial arts. That just the energy to learn to walk, to mm-hmm. learn to move your hands and arms. You have to develop pathways, and it's your thought of moving the arm that develops the pathway that causes the movement. So eventually, it's just this energy follows thought. So you make the thoughts, that energy follows that. So again, back to if your thoughts are on what have you not done, what have you lost, what have you, what are you leaving behind kind of stuff, then you kind of get stuck here. Mm-hmm. And otherwise, you get to move on.
Yeah. How has this changed your personal life?
Well, I can say that in the last 2 years one of the things that was not going well for me was me and my wife. I have always, since I was a child, had a problem with wrath and having anger issues and being, I used to easily fly off the handle, and part of that was because of repeated actions of flying off the handle.
Yeah.
And so the meditation and stuff that I started doing, which I had meditation before Sikh, but I just wasn't using it, and I couldn't get myself to get into it, and it's built into the Sikh religion, so it kind of helped me when I started doing the morning prayers and the morning. It's really more morning meditations.
Yeah.
And that actually I started noticing after a few months that my wrath was less, and I'm able to control it when it happens. I don't just fly off the handle. I can marginalize it, or I can, at least wrap my head around why it's there, mm-hmm. and then not react to it in the same way. So that was one of the big things personally for me, which has had the effect that my wife and I are actually getting along a lot better than we were.
That's great.
Despite the fact that I joined a religion that she is disdainful of.
Yeah.
So, but she has even been able to see that the effect on me has been a positive one for our relationship, at least.
Yeah, that's great. It's good to hear.
Yeah.
Anything that you think that other people should know about Sikhism or Sikhs?
Yeah, I mean, really, the main thing that I think people should know about Sikhs is that, for the most part, and I'm not going to say that everyone is exactly the same, and that there are instances of bad decisions by Sikhs.
Oh, yeah.
But the fact that Sikhs will tell you straight out that we are humans first, and then we're Sikhs.
Yeah.
That one of the things we say in our das is maaf karni, to forgive the shortcomings of others, and to forgive, and to forgive mistakes. So not only forgive yourself for mistakes that you make, and forgive others for mistakes that they make. So that's part of the humanism of it, I think. And I would say that, ultimately Sikhs are, as a group, just really humane people that are they may have here in America, they have the fact that they wear turbans gives them a certain stigma that I think that they shouldn't have.
Yeah.
But there's not much that can be done about that as far as, just the stigma itself, but other than people just meeting Sikhs and finding out that, just because a person wears a turban doesn't mean that they're, a bad person, or they have thoughts or ideas that are different than, the rest of the world. They're not really, they're very, about the oneness. So the main thing, I would want people to know is that if they ever need help, Sikhs are some of the first person that they should seek out. I read about it, in India a lot, that if you want to know that things are going to be safe, you get a Sikh driver. You make sure that the manager of the restaurant you're eating at is a Sikh. The hotel employs Sikhs. And that's just because they're typically they are not trying to get ahead in the world on you.
Yeah.
So that makes them, trustworthy, basically. And again, every individual is who they are, and so if they're an untrustworthy person overall, then it is what it is.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I always like to take everything on an individual basis.
Yeah, a religion can't fix you.
No, not at all. And it's like the old adage that you get martial arts to have self-discipline, and that's not true. If you had self-discipline when you became a martial artist, then you'll probably be a really good one.
Yeah.
But it's not going to teach you self-discipline, and it may just turn you into a mean person.
I really appreciate you talking with me.
Sure. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.